All right, so we are going to get into music first for our study of the fugue. This is the listening lab for the fugue. So hopefully by now we're getting more comfortable accessing music first. Finding all of our assignments. All right. So again, I'd like to go through all of that just in case we have some that are getting lost. Okay, so we've made it to syllabus and assignment week 3. We are looking at, we already did the J.S. Bach reading. Hopefully you did the reading guide. And we now are going to be looking at the fugue in C major. Remember, we've already looked at the prelude in C major. Now we're looking at the fugue. Before we get started, let's review our terminology for the fugue. We have counterpoint, which is several melodies against one another, layered melodies. Fugue is usually a 4-voice piece that uses imitation and counterpoint. Parts of the fugue. Subject is the main melody. Answer is the main melody at a different starting note. Counter subject, I'm going to add here. This is kind of optional. This does not happen in every fugue. Exposition, super important. Introduction of all the musical characters. You have to have a subject or an answer, main melody, in all of the voices. In order to be a fugue, there must be an exposition at the beginning, and we're going to see that. Okay, so, all right, we will be right back. Okay, so we are ready to start the fugue in C major. We'll listen to it once, and then we will analyze it. Okay, it's a lot going on in that piece. So before we begin to analyze this, I want to reiterate some of the things that we've read in our reading. First of all, that Baroque music is like a craft. It's like building a bridge, or building a carpenter building a table. So you might not find this particularly beautiful, but that's okay. There's a lot of Baroque music that is beautiful. Fugues Fugues aren't really about being beautiful exactly. It's more about the craftsmanship. So for example, you might look at a table and think, well, I don't think tables are beautiful, right? There's lots of things that might be beautiful or pretty. Is a table beautiful? Maybe. But there's a certain art to it, there's a certain structure to it, a certain craftsmanship to furniture um, that can be pleasing also. And maybe that's how we should be thinking about fugues, that the fact that it's a very complicated puzzle, like a musical puzzle that they put together. Okay, so um, first we just need to look at the subject. So we're going to listen to this first voice. That's the subject. Notice it starts on a C. And what I want you to do is notice the characteristics of the subject, because that's how we're going to be able to tell what's going on as the piece gets complicated. So let's listen to just the subject first. Okay, that's about it. So let's characterize the first part of it. It starts on one note and it begins to ascend up to the fifth. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. And when it gets to so, it does this. These are 30-second notes, very, very fast notes. So that's gonna be what we're listening for first. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum. Then, because there's a lot of variety here, we had all this stepwise do, re, mi, fa, sol. And then what does he do? He says, what is the opposite? Excuse me. What's the opposite of going up by step? Going down by leap. So then we get da 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 dee, da dum. So we get these kind of leapy things, and then we get a bit of a run, fast notes. Da 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 dum. So let's listen to it one more time. Okay, now the answer, which is coming in this voice, it's going to have the same shape, same intervals, but now since it's starting on a G, it's going ba da 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 ba da 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 da. So it started on a different note, in this case the fifth, which is pretty common. So it's the main melody, but since it didn't start on a C, it's not the subject, it's the answer. Okay, which is just a small difference. It's actually it's the same melody, same main melody, but it didn't start on a C, it started on a G, different note. C, answer, now in the tenor voice here, ask yourself this question. We have a new entrance on a G. Now this is a fugue in C. So is an entrance on a G the subject or the answer? If it's the subject, it will come in on a C. If it's the answer, it'll come on the G or some other note, but it won't be C. So now we've had so far one subject and two answers. Remember, for a fugue to be a fugue, we have to have all four voices enter with a subject or an answer. So far, we've had a subject and two answers. So we would expect the last voice, which would be the bass voice, you can see it's resting right now. The bass voice will probably come in on a subject because we've already had a subject, we've had two answers, we're probably gonna have another subject maybe. Let's see. So now we've got two voices in, we're about to have our third voice in. And aha, we get the bass voice on a C coming in. That means it is a subject. And again, it's going to use that same thing. Now, I'm just gonna let it play for a little bit, and if you follow my mouse cursor, and I'll be telling you, okay, subject, answer, let's see what happens. Bass voice. Okay, soprano voice here. Let's see, does this look like a subject or an answer? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, dum, bum, ba. Yeah, that looks like the subject. Ah, but this guy snuck in too. So now we have a subject here up top, but there's an answer. G, A, B, C, da, 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 da. So we have two going on at the same time now. Alto, bass, tenor. Now no, this one came in and there's like sharps and stuff, so it's in a different key. It's doing a weird thing. The music's kind of changing. You'll see all these sharps. It's getting a little bit more complicated, right? But you see how it works. Each entrance is sounding the same. Bum, 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 ba-da-da, has the same rhythm and has the same melodic shape. And so fugues, we consider fugues to be very strict. They have all these rules, right, that you have to follow. Alto subject, tenor answer, bass answer, soprano answer, repeat. So I hope you saw in a very short succession there, we had a bunch of entrances. Bum, 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 bum. And you can really tell when something's happening because you remember those falling 30 seconds? Da-da-dum, dee-da-dum, da-da-dum, right? You can pick those out. Those are the subjects and answers. Da-da-dum. Everyone, those are all subjects and answers. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum, bum. We're still getting those subjects and answers. Okay. Let's go back to our notes. So if you remember our counterpoint, all right, so if you remember in our sicut cervus, we have that sicut cervus, and then that would be in all the voices, right? Well, it's the same kind of technique. So we used to call that in the Renaissance, we called that head motive imitation, right? That was the Renaissance. Well, it's essentially the same thing, except for now we have subject, answer, exposition. Okay, so it just means the difference between Renaissance and Fugue, and in terms of the Baroque. So we have the Renaissance imitation versus the Baroque fugue. They work almost the same way. It's just that the fugue is much more strict. More strict, more rules. Okay. So I hope that that analysis, that was pretty quick, but you know, that's all it is. So we get all these main melodies. Now you might be asking yourself, what is all that other stuff, right? So if we go back and we say, okay, Well, Dr. Geyer, that's all well and good. I think I've got the subject answer thing, but there's a lot more notes going on here that aren't subject and answer. And that is, we're going to call that counterpoint, right? That's just parts of melodies and other creative things that the composer's coming up with to fill out the rest of the four voice texture. And that's part of the artistry, right? We talked about that table. The table has a function, right? It needs to be sturdy. It needs to be able to hold things and be able to carry some weight. But it could also have decorations on it. It could have artistry as well. And so the same is true here. So we have subjects and answers, that's kind of the foundation of the piece. And then all this other music, all these other notes are the composer's free artistry. Okay, we just call that counterpoint. All right. So I hope that is pretty clear for you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.